As well, usually when we regulators implement capital increases, there is considerable pre-testing done to determine the impact on each bank and whether transition rules are needed. This would be hard to do if adjustments were automatic. Now, it is clear that global turmoil has been so serious that it calls for a fundamental rethink and an examination of new ideas. It's understandable, I think, that an automatic capital increase idea is gaining popularity because it offers something that everybody wants. We want a moderation of cycles, we want stable banks, and perhaps we even want the prevention of bubbles. However, as the paper by Claudio Borio notes, both measuring system-wide risks and calibrating policy tools are far from straightforward. Further, I have to say that the tendency to react rationally, as markets did when they pushed up capital levels in 2008, is not always proof that they were wrong from the outset to do so. While some can say that that action induced a deeper recession, others can say that markets took a view on how deep the recession would be and they were right. I think that the most promising avenues to explore are higher quality Tier 1 capital, leverage ratios, loan-to-value ratios, through the cycle estimates under Pillar 2, and loan loss provisioning. The first four on that list were very important in terms of the Canadian banking system, and they allowed the system to withstand the stress of global market turmoil and also successfully raise private capital. They did help to make the system less pro-cyclical or more counter-cyclical. The Pillar 2 approach, though, I recognize is not automatic, and many are concerned about the will to act to ensure that Pillar 2 is robust in good times. I know that assessing Pillar 2 is extremely challenging, but going forward, I think supervisors will have more support if there is more global focus on macroprudential monitoring. It will better position us all and create more will to act. Further, as you know, supervisors through the Basel Committee and elsewhere have identified a lot of weaknesses in regulation and supervision globally that we are trying to deal with now. Namely, Basel capital rules did not keep pace with rapid innovation in the securitization market or in the credit derivatives market. Basel capital rules did not properly pick up counterparty risk. Our supervisory programs did not really cover compensation systems. Supervisors relied on banks being able to transfer risk, and we found out that banks can't really transfer risk due to reputational risk. Supervisory oversight of liquidity was lacking, but all of those areas we recognize do need to be addressed, and the work has been given a high priority, and I think much progress has actually already been made. So while I am sure that work will continue to develop proposals so that we come up with counter-cyclical capital buffers that are automatic, at the end of the day, while I think it might be something that can be developed, I'm not as hopeful as many are. All of this suggests to me that we need to be more humble in our aspirations. The reality is that the real world is ever-changing, it's dynamic, it's innovative, with no complete understanding on the part of macroeconomists and regulators of how the parts acting on their own will affect the system. So in closing, I want to return to the title of this session, which is all about discovering where the next threat to banks may be lurking. And it's a bit like an iceberg. The most dangerous part lurks underneath the water, and it can be difficult to detect. The biggest concern now, I think, is whether the actions taken by central banks and governments will have the desired impact, and if they do, whether the financial aid that is being delivered to the global economy and global financial system will have unintended consequences. Lots of questions can be asked. Wealth has shrunk, but debt has not. The question is, can we cure a global debt problem with more debt? Will cyclical recoveries be like they have been in the past, or will they be truncated with several false dawns as a result of consequences of the actions that we're taking today? No one really has the answers to those questions. And as my remarks indicate, we really do have to try to ensure that the regulatory and supervisory prescriptions that we come up with do not create new risks for the banking system. I think that unintended consequences of various actions are a real risk here. So to recap, the main points I've made are: first, macroprudential monitoring is a very good idea, especially if we focus on what it tells us. Second, tying capital requirements to macro indicators is fraught with challenges, and I think it is way too soon to say that is a viable policy option. But there are a lot of concrete steps that can be taken to improve system resilience. That includes quality of capital, leverage controls, fixes to capital rules in specific areas like securitization and counterparty risk, focusing more on liquidity, focusing on compensation plans, etc. And lastly, I think that future risks to banking are very difficult to predict at this time, which really means that banks have to be very prudent and supervisors have to be incredibly vigilant in this period. And we should not oversell our capabilities given the challenges. Thank you.